Hey, folks, have you ever scanned the entire environment of a particular solution or application? And what I mean with that is by solutions, is the entire ecosystem, is not only the application, but the servers, database, firewalls, router switches, and so forth. That and the solution is something that you provide to your customer, a widget of sorts that supports your customers. And just to come up with hundreds and hundreds of vulnerability and then being asked what is the aggregate risk of that particular solution, you're not alone if you're in that situation. So there's many ways to do this. I'm going to show you one today. So take a look. Here is a few challenges before we get into the formula that I'm going to show you today. The first challenge that you see we already alluded to is you have hundreds of vulnerabilities. The second challenge is you need to find some way, somehow, to roll it up to something. And if you heard me before, I would roll up to a mission-based solution, a mission-based risk management program that you have. So that solution will have an impact to the mission, corporate objectives, and will impact your ability to deliver that widget, that service, that product to your customers and shareholders. So now you define where you're going to roll up to. So you will run that vulnerability scanner, come up with hundreds of vulnerabilities. Now you know where to roll up. Now you only missing link, the missing piece here is how you're going to aggregate. Here is a quick formula for you. Now, you might have tools that do this for you, but if you're a small to mid-size company and you don't have it, here it is. And I'll explain this formula for you. And the example I'll give you in this formula is an environment that you have about 148 devices. And what we're trying to do here is to come up with the aggregate risk. We're going to only focus on the high vulnerabilities that your scanner came up with. So you're going to see the entire environment. And Q on this formula can be two things. Can be a simple set of your environment, and that can be judgmental sampling or random sampling of that environment, or the total population. 148 is not a big environment. You can just use the entire environment. So 148. What you're looking for here is if the number of high vulnerabilities are greater or equal to 10%, the entire environment is high. It doesn't matter. And if the number of high vulnerabilities is between 5 and 10%, so in this case, 10% would be what? 15, let's round it up. And for the 5 and 10, it would be in between 7 and 10. The entire environment is a medium. So you get the gist here. So only focusing on a high, you assess the entire environment. Now, where I came up with the 10%, 5, 10, and 0 to 5. So the percentage is the part that is subjective. That is, consider that's your risk appetite. Can your organization live with that a mission critical application that provides this widget to your customers containing high vulnerabilities that are passing that threshold? So it's more than 10%. So in this case, more than 14 or 15 vulnerabilities that are high on that environment. If that is too much, I cannot have that many high vulnerabilities in my environment. I can live with 2 or 3 or 5. Adjust the percentage accordingly. So this way, you have that risk appetite. That's the only area that you will have to discuss with your organization, with your IT department, with other cybersecurity individuals, and see what is the right level of if you feel 14 is okay, I can live, or 20%, regardless, right? And you're also going to have to adjust this percentage if you decide to focus on mediums as well. So that is the only subjectivity that you have room to work with, and then come up with an aggregate risk. So I can say if I have 15 vulnerabilities, so my total population of vulnerabilities are equal or higher than 10%, the entire environment is high. So now I have an aggregate risk impact for that widget, for that solution. that facilitates the conversation versus dumping a spreadsheet on your leadership or providing volumes. We have so many highs, so many mediums, so many lows, and say, okay, great. Should I be worried about? Where is the threshold that I should start worrying about? Now you have the aggregate risk. So it changes the conversation. That is one way. Now, if you're a larger organization, probably you have an automated tool that can do that for you. Once again, this will help for the large organization to understand how the calculations on the back end happens, but also for small and medium-sized organizations that don't have the privilege or the capability to have these tools in it. This is a way to do it as well. Now, there are caveats to that. So this is a bonus. There's some caveat to that. If you also need to consider and work within your organization, consider in adding to aging of the vulnerability. And also if the vulnerability is externally exposed, that might raise the risk a little more. And then you make some changes in here or take that in consideration. Keep the formula unique and uniform because now you have a repeatable process that you can do over and over. But also include, okay, this widget has elements that are exposed to the internet. Therefore, we'll take a little more urgency on this one. Consider that as well. That's how you work with this formula. And that's how you aggregate to have a single risk impact. Now, what's next? What's next is that the vulnerability is just one element of a risk assessment. Yes, we're not done. A vulnerability scan is not a risk assessment. A penetration test is not a risk assessment. Those are elements of a vulnerability assessment. So there's a whole lot more to come, which I will talk about on my next video.